Okay, now the last step in my fabulous 3-step painting program, which was drawing and measuring, figuring out what your painting is about. Second, what's the lights and darks, what's the breakdown of it, if you were just doing it in value. And third is the color. I want to do this painting using this limited palette. I really like working with these. Just the primaries, there's a couple reasons for it. The painting's going to harmonize. When you start to mix all these colors together, you get orange out of here and purple, etc. They all came out of the same primaries, so they're going to play well together and they'll all be good buddies. And the painting won't feel like there's extraneous colors. The second is you're going to learn more about color well, I certainly did in my process by mixing. In pretty much any painting I do, I try and reduce, again, all this complexity down to just a series of simple shapes. It's like cutting out colored paper. There's a color for the sky, that's 1. Side of the lighthouse, side of the house, that's 2. The shadow side, 3. This is 4. Briefly, these colors are titanium white. Again, it's the Cobra brand water mixable oils. Cad yellow lemon, I believe. Pyrrole red, which is the Cobra brand name for I guess Cad red light, and ultramarine blue. Let's start with laying down the front of the house, or this plane of the house here, just a little bit of yellow. A small note about using white: always tint it, never use it by itself. It's a cool gray. It will cool whatever, if you just use it by itself, it will cool whatever color you add it to, because it's basically just a light gray. Okay, that's the lightest based on this little valley sketch I did before. It's the lightest. The next lightest was the sky. So I'll grab white and add just a little bit of ultramarine blue to it. I want to cover the canvas as quickly as I can. You can't judge colors, or I certainly can't, until I have the canvas covered. The white or whatever the underpainting is going to throw you off. I work thin when I first lay color on, so I can always go back over it. It'll dry a little faster than I can go. Once I'm pretty happy with the direction of it, I go back in with thicker paint. But to start with, I work pretty thin, just enough to get these big blocks of shape in. That's just a shape of color. This is a shape of color. Let's do the side or the front of the house, kind of like just a square here facing us. And it's similar to the sky, but it's a little grayer. And the way to get gray using a limited palette like this is to mix all 3 of these colors together. Basically, they cancel each other out. And I find this part is probably more important than laying the color on. Once I have the drawing, it's getting these colors down and making sure that this relationship here, that the colors, even when they're on the palette, read. That's the lightest, this is the next lightest, this is the next lightest. Side of the house here, or the front plane here. I'm not worried about the window, I'm not worried about the flag. There's a lot of small details. I'm going to work from the biggest shapes I possibly can and get progressively smaller and smaller. Let's get the front sloping, like this hill rolling up to it. Obviously yellow and blue make green. I will always add a little red or orange to my greens. It gives the green a little more life. It also just suggests, this is sort of a subtle way of suggesting that there's ground plane, patches of ground sort of peeking up. There's another way, sometimes I'll just notch on the side if I'm not sure if that's the right color for it. So just by adding yellow and red to this blue, it just warms it up. And by warming it, it will have the effect of feeling like it's coming towards the viewer. These are like little pieces of a puzzle, just like small shapes, large shapes. But the simpler I can make these shapes when I first start, the painting is easier to get. And then I can go in and I can add more paint and cut back into these shapes. There's a little bit of the sky peeking through. As the sky rises, it tends to cool, so I tend to add more blue at the top. The top of this there's a little roof line which I can now put in here. Sky is a little bit, let's darken the sky up at the top here a little bit. And because the light source is coming right to left, it's going to be a little bit lighter up here on this side of the sky, and a little bit darker over here. Let's add a little more yellow and red to this ground plane up here. Just mixing it in with the existing green that I already laid down. So that's the step-by-step process. I did the value study first, use that as a guide for here. So when I was if I had issues with it, I could always go back and go, oh yeah, you know what? That worked better having that a little bit darker, a little bit lighter. That was lighter than this. Sky was a little bit lighter than the side of the house. But I basically reduced it down to the blue of the sky, side of the lighthouse, and the shadow side of the building here, the grass. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 colors.